Three girls went to summer camp in June of 1977, and by sunrise, they were gone. Not missing, not lost in the woods, murdered. And here's the detail that has haunted this case for nearly 50 years. They weren't taken far. They were found less than 200 feet from their tent, close enough that help wasn't miles away. It was right there, close enough that if something had gone differently, even slightly, someone might have heard something. Someone might have stopped it. This is not just a story about a crime. This is a story about warnings that were ignored, about decisions that didn't seem important at the time, but became everything later. By the end of this, you're going to understand why people still argue about this case today, because this isn't just unsolved. This is uncomfortable. And this is the Yore Town Podcast, and the voice you're hearing, it's me, it's Matt, it's Beard Laws, and joining me as always is the beautiful, slightly under the weather, probably you would think from going a little too hard on spring break, but when you're in your 40s and you're poor and you don't travel anywhere, then you just call it sickness. Meg.
Hey.
How you feeling?
A little better.
We waited until you were medicated with your cough syrup to do this episode. It's been a rough week.
Yeah, I think I might have bronchitis.
Yeah, that's not great. Bet you can't spell it.
But I can, but I'm not going to.
Okay, that's what they all say when they don't really know.
Bronchitis.
I don't think that's right.
I think it is.
Now that we have to look it up. And obviously, while I'm looking that up, this is a pretty serious case, and we're not out here, making fun of anything here. We try to make these true crime cases a little bit lighter, as parents, especially with 3 kids. This one, and, we like to camp. This one does hit a little bit home, even though it's far away. So again, it's just, we haven't done a true crime case, I feel, in a little bit. So this one, I saw a picture or a story about it somewhere. So I said, you know what? We haven't done it yet. Let's do it. Bronchitis, for any of those wondering, Bronchitis. How she didn't spell it.
Lies. Nailed it.
I wonder how you get rid of it. Treatment, self-care, resting. Are you doing that?
Trying.
Are you drinking fluids?
Lots.
You had some squash juice. I watched it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good. And, we have to use a humidifier. We don't have one of them. It broke. Maybe we'll buy one.
Yeah. I have an inhaler.
That's much different than a humidifier. Close in the alphabet. Different things. Medication, over-the-counter medicine. Anyways, I said lifestyle. You have to quit smoking is crucial for chronic cases.
Nailed it.
Good thing you quit. It's easy to quit when you never start. Right? Oh, got her.
Sorry.
All right. And for anybody that wants to check out more of the shows that we do, you guys can go over to the Beard Laws Network, where we have Stay Out of My Fridge, which we're actually going to film something pretty cool. The kids are actually excited to be a part of a podcast. Finally, for now. Are we bribing them with food? Maybe. Yes, we are. Also, home of the Triple T Podcast. If you like true conspiracy and all sorts of weird stuff, that's over there with me and Luther Grimwood. Street Sign Storytime seems to be a local favorite where we travel, because we do some traveling. We find street names and we dig into some real history about it. This week, I'll even give you the topic, Fulton Road. Not just a band, but the history of why so many places, especially New York and up here, are named Fulton Road. Do you know why?
I don't.
You'll have to check it out.
I will.
I'll tell you all about it after this. And last but not least, you can head over to the Beard Law Studio. Check out all the beard-related content. And if you don't love beards and you're just here for true crime, let's jump into it. You ready? All right. This sets place in Oklahoma, where the wind goes blowing down the plain. Is that how it goes?
Sure.
I think I nailed it. Camp Scott sat just outside Locust Grove, Oklahoma. How do you think they came up with Locust Grove? Was there a grove full of locusts?
I think so.
Well, it was surrounded by dense woods and rough terrain. It wasn't exactly what all these people do these days and glamp. It was built for convenience. It was built for experience. Girls, they would come here so that they could learn outdoor survival skills. They could earn their badges, build independence, and, start to spend some nights away from home. The layout of the camp, it matters, I feel, more than people realize. The camp was divided into units, each with clusters of tents. Tent number 8 is where Lori, Michelle, and Doris stayed. Those are some 70s names, aren't they? And this was part of the Kiowa unit. I think I said that right?
Sure.
Close enough. Listen, we're Eastern. This is Central.
Kiowa.
What? Shore?
Yeah.
I don't think it was shore or by the shore. There's no shores in Oklahoma. But here's a critical detail. Number 8 was the farthest from the counselor tent. Not slightly farther, noticeably farther. Far enough that it had less visibility, less immediate supervision, longer response time if something went a little wrong. Now again, in the moment, it doesn't feel dangerous. It feels like camp. But in hindsight, they always say hindsight is 20/20 or something, right? It's one of those details that sticks. I feel like we have done a lot of Yore Town episodes. I want to say we're in the, I don't know the exact numbers, but we're approaching some pretty good amount of numbers. And we've done a lot in the 70s and a lot in the Texas area, which Oklahoma's right near Texas. So I feel like this is a tough one. It's a tough one regardless, but like
It's
of all the
like,
hitchhiking, serial killers, people settling in the Texas area from everywhere else. But let's go ahead and slow this down a little bit because these aren't just names, right? Laura Lee Farmer, 8 years old, was the youngest of the 3 girls. It was her first time at camp. Her mom later said she was excited but a little bit nervous. Have you done some camp and stuff like this, like 4-H camps and stuff? Probably the same thing. What age did you start?
Pretty young.
8-ish? Younger?
Probably around that, 7, 8.
You're excited, probably. A little nervous, if you can remember that far back.
Funny.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was exciting.
Exciting, little nervous. She was the kind of kid they described who needed a little reassurance, but still wanted to go. Right? I feel like we have one of those at the house, and we are potentially doing a camp for the first time. Hopefully this doesn't sway your decision. Next one is Michelle Goose, G-U-S-E. Goose? I'm stuck on that. Either way, 9 years old, pretty outgoing, very social, the kind of kid who makes friends quickly. She wrote letters home almost immediately. That sounds like ours. Then you had Doris Denise Milner, 10 years old, the oldest of the 3, slightly more experienced, had been to camp before, was very comfortable in the environment. 3 different personalities, 3 different lives, all placed together in tent number 8. What are you thinking so far? Other than it's just terrible anything?
Bad placement. Wrong place, wrong time.
And I don't know exactly how long the camp's been open, but it's not the first year this camp is here. You know what I mean? Tent number 8's probably been around for a long time. Nothing like this ever happened. But, I mean, how many of these cases have we have? Small town. Nothing ever bad happens in these places until something bad happens in these places, you know?
Right.
Let's talk about some letters to home, right? Because this is where things start to feel a little bit personal, right? Michelle wrote a letter to home. And this is one of those moments that when you hear it, it hits different because it's normal. She talks about camp. She talks about what she's doing, what it's like. But she also mentioned something that almost feels like a warning now. She says she's scared. She doesn't feel safe. Now, again, context matter. Kids, they probably get scared at camp all the time, right? I was never a camp kid. Kids get scared, probably, miss their parents, hear things in the woods a little bit, and scary for a kid, right?
New environment.
Dark woods.
Wild imaginations, yep.
Strange noises at night, all that stuff, right? So I would have to imagine you get that letter. Now you're not the kid at camp anymore. You're the parent. You get these letters. Probably not setting off any alarms, right? Just a little, first time at camp,
Right.
What was it, Michelle? Which one was Michelle? Michelle was do you remember? She was the 9-year-old. She was the middle kid. So pretty outgoing, a little scared. But again, away from their parents, 9 years old. Probably pretty normal, right? Again, didn't set off any alarms. But after all of this kind of stuff went down, the letter became something else, right? Again, hindsight, 2020 or whatever. And they probably ended up on an episode of 2020. All right. This is the detail that makes people pretty upset when they learn about this case. Because before the girls even arrived, a counselor found a note. Not a hidden note, not buried note. It was just there. You know what the message said? There was a threat to kill girls in a tent.
Yeah, probably would have turned that one in.
Yeah. And here's where the real world decision making comes into play, because it wasn't ignored out of laziness, I guess. It was dismissed because they said it didn't feel real. Again, we're in the 70s. You're seeing a threat at a girls' camp. Maybe they've seen something like this before. Maybe they've thought it was just, I don't know, they felt it just didn't feel right. And maybe that's human nature of the times, you know? We don't want to believe that something extreme is possible. They didn't probably believe that anything would ever happen. It's never happened before. Why would it happen again? So most people, they just kind of explain it away. You kind of rationalize it, right? And then you just move on. But this, unfortunately, is one of those rare cases where that instinct may have cost everything. Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, obviously, we're looking at the case from the outside in, but were you ever a counselor at a camp?
No.
Didn't get to that stage?
No, my sister was.
So imagine your sister gets this kind of note. She's probably bringing it to somebody more important. I have to imagine they're going to look into something like this, but...
You would think.
What would you do? You're a counselor at a camp. You see this. Let's put yourself a younger counselor.
I would give it to a senior advisor.
Yeah, maybe patrol a little extra harder. I don't know. Again, we're not in those shoes. And, you know, if sometimes you got to walk a mile in somebody's shoes to really know. And if that's the case, you guys want to hear a children's book, go buy You're Missing a Shoe by Matt McClure on Amazon. It's a pretty good book.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right.
It's a great book.
Yeah, it's pretty good. One of the kids might even have it almost memorized. All right. Let's slow this down. Let's walk through the night. You ready? Slow it down. We're going to walk through the night, both shoes on.
Okay.
Because this is where the unknown starts to live, all right? June 12th, 1977. We're not even alive yet, man. Crazy to think about. Camp activities, they wrap up. Girls head to their tents. Counselors settle into their own areas. I feel like that's something you can picture pretty easy. Long day. Kids are tired. Oklahoma's probably pretty hot in the middle of June. I think you can smell the bonfires. Ready to settle in. Nothing unusual reported. There's no major disturbances. Probably some kids crying, scared. Counselors really having to earn their keep on the first day, right? There's no red flags, no alarms at this point, right? But at some point during that night, the killer approaches tent number 8. And here's what investigators believe. The entry was quiet, the entry was controlled, and the entry was planned. It wasn't chaotic. They're thinking it wasn't random. And this is probably somebody who knew the layout, probably knew where to go. They probably knew how to move without drawing attention. Girls, at some point, were removed from the tent, taken either one by one or maybe all together. And about 150 to 200 feet away into the woods is where they were moved. What's your gut telling you right now?
Someone that's been to the camp before, ex-counselor or somebody that camped there, maybe had a bad experience.
Mm-hmm. Male or?
I'm almost thinking female.
Okay. They did, when they found the bodies, there's a lot of gross details. Just throwing that out there. We're going to skip all the gross details. That's what we do here, but not a great scene, obviously, anytime there's a murder scene, let alone children and everything else in there. But the evidence did suggest that the killer spent time at the scene, which is a pretty disturbing part of the case because it means it wasn't rushed. There was no panic. The killer was very in control. Maybe, based on things we've done in the Yore Town Podcast, maybe this isn't the first time they've done this. And it sounds like, to me, it probably wasn't. Right? Man, there's some sick people out there. So we know some details. Morning comes up. The camp wakes up. What's that feeling the first night you wake up after camp? Like, the environment all around. I mean, obviously this is a different camp than the ones you've been to, but like, was that first morning? You excited? You tired? You exhausted? You
Excited.
Excited?
Because you usually have like activities planned for the day. You ready to get up and get going?
Probably a little tired. Probably didn't sleep great. I'd have to imagine first night at camp, or
probably.
Did you sleep good on your first night at camp?
Probably not. But I always did the polar bear plunge, the one I went to. So my group had to get up earlier and meet at the lake.
Morning. Sun comes up. If there was a chicken, it's going, whatever. Maybe like in Salute Your Shorts, there's... You think they're doing that?
Probably.
Camp's up. They're awake. Almost immediately, something felt wrong, right? Want to know what the counselors noticed? Girls aren't in their sleeping bags. In the tent, it looks disturbed. At first, confusion. Not so much fear, right? But it quickly turned into concern. Then it quickly turned into urgency. And then they find them in the woods. And everything changes. Couldn't imagine being a counselor and having to walk up on that. It's crazy to think that it was that close that they were able to find them too. I mean, how many other times have we had to do things, and it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years, it could be never found, and they find them. But you know what's wild about stories like this? It's how quickly things can go from normal to completely off. I want to be honest. When I'm digging into cases like this, spending hours researching, recording, trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense, I got to stay locked in, Meg. And there's two things that come in for me. Live bearded, because if I'm sitting here grinding through content, I'm at least going to feel put together doing it and smell good, right? We mentioned it earlier, old Squatch juice, because focus isn't optional when you're diving into something this heavy. No crashes, no nonsense, just dialed in. If you're dealing with stories like this, you don't want to miss details. And trust me, there are details in this case that change everything. Because coming up, we're going to get into the suspect. You're probably wondering. Some evidence and even a trial that still divides people to this day. And the question that has never gone away, did they let the killer walk free? So at this point, we're about halfway through it. What do you think?
I'm still thinking it's somebody that's camped there before.
Do you think they find the killer? Do you think that the killer got away? Do you think they never knew who the killer was?
I don't think they ever knew who it was.
Because, I mean, at this point, we have 3 girls. We have 1 tent. We have a warning that wasn't taken seriously. We got a crime scene that's just 150 feet away from where they were supposed to be safe. Right? But if you're ready, we move into the part of the story.
I almost feel like it was like somebody that was present there, like a counselor that was already there that they knew, and maybe they were like, hey, we need to go
this way. Would be disturbing.
That's
where your brain's at?
Path is going. Yeah.
All right. You want to dive into the story that still is dividing people nearly 50 years later? All right. Because investigators, they didn't spend years chasing ghosts. They found someone. They had a real suspect. They had a man with a history. A man who knew the area. A man who on paper looked exactly like the kind of person who would probably do something like this. And yet, he never paid for it. So the question is, did the system fail? Or did it do exactly what it was supposed to do? What do you think? Did it fail? Or did it do exactly what it was supposed to do? Innocent until proven guilty.
I don't know.
Tough without knowing all the details. All right, let's talk about the man in the woods. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think this man's name is? This man in the woods.
Charlie.
Ooh, close. Jean Leroy Hart. And this wasn't some random name pulled out of nowhere. Hart was already known to the old law enforcement. Which, I mean, most of the cases that we've done here and covered and researched, it's not their first time. Cops know these people, right? Proving it. It's easier said than done. He had a criminal past that included burglary and doing bad things to women and other people. Feel like you know, right? And at the time of Camp Scott murders, he wasn't even supposed to be out of jail. He escaped from prison. Let that sink in. There was already a man convicted of very violent crimes, living somewhere in that general area, as a remote summer camp full of young girls. And nobody knew exactly where he was. That alone would be enough to raise some alarms, right? But then investigators, they played the old game of connect the dots. Which, why did that go away? That was pretty big when we were young, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How do we bring that back?
I don't know.
I want to start making connect the dots.
I mean, I feel like they're still around.
Are they? When's the last time you've seen a connect the dots?
We do them all the time.
You do? Oh, at school?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's just me. Anybody listen, comment right now. When's the last time that you've done a connect the dots? And should me and Meg make our own connect the dots?
Okay.
All right. So they're connecting the dots. Well, eating dots, the superior parade candy. Hart grew up in the area. Hart knew the terrain. Hart knew how to move through these woods. More importantly, he knew how to disappear in these woods. Because after the murders, it's exactly what good old Hart did. He done disappeared. The search for Hart, it wasn't quick. It wasn't clean. And it turned into a full-scale manhunt. That'd be a cool band name. Full-scale manhunt.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of music would it be?
Metal.
It's got to be some hard metal, right?
Yeah.
We are full-scale manhunt! We're on the same page. Law enforcement, they combed through wooded areas. They went through caves. They went through abandoned structures. Anywhere someone who's on the run, like, man up, maybe hide long term. And here's what made this different from your typical fugitive search. Hart wasn't on the run in a city. He was bouncing from, or he wasn't even like bouncing motel to motel. He was in terrain he understood better than all the people chasing him. At one point, authorities believed he was hiding in caves, which natural shelters that gave him cover from the weather, protection from detection. That's a cool band name. From detection, and it also gave him time. And that's what this became. A waiting game. Because Hart didn't need to outrun police. All he had to do was outlast the police. What are you thinking still, Meg? Think he's the guy still? Think he's running, he's hiding? Or do you think it's coincidence maybe? Because he's hiding regardless. He escaped from prison.
Right.
I mean, he's out there hiding.
I don't know.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
Now this is where things start to feel like the case is tightening. Like it's almost all coming together. Investigators begin building what looks like a pretty strong case. They find footprints at the crime scene, and not just vague impressions, detailed enough to compare. Authorities believe those prints matched boots linked to Hart. Not perfectly, not definitely, but close enough to maybe matter. Again, this is the 70s. Technology is a little bit different. There were some physical items near the scene. They recovered items that appeared connected to the crime. Some reports mention duct tape, bindings, objects consistent with the other things used. But again, nothing that just screamed like slam dunk. But they're starting to stack, right? Layer by layer. And then the letters. This is where the case gets a little strange, Meg. There were letters that started to surface. Letters that sounded like confessions. Not formal confessions, not signed like, I did it, but disturbing enough that investigators had to take them seriously. Finally.
Did they compare them to the note that was left previously?
Well, there was a tone. There was detail. And it pointed towards someone who either knew what happened or was involved. And guess who those letters pointed at? Hart. So now you have a violent escaped felon in the same region, familiar with the terrain, evidence that suggests presence, letters that sounded like admissions. So if you're sitting there listening to this, you're probably thinking, that's the guy, right, Meg? And honestly, a lot of people thought the same thing. Eventually, they find him. He was captured. He was brought in. And at that moment, there was almost a sense of relief around the area because it felt like the turning point. Suspect was no longer hiding. Now, all they had to do was prove it. Now, it was about justice. You ever notice when things start to feel like they're finally adding up, lining up, adding up? That's when you lean in the most, right? That's how this part of the story feels. And I'm going to be honest. I'm deep in a case like this, late nights, digging into details, trying to piece things together to make a great episode. Got to stay locked in. More squash juice, Meg. There's no crash. There's no nonsense. It keeps you focused. And yeah, I'm not going to lie. Looking feeling good with my lip bearded, it helps. Because if I'm going to sit there for hours breaking down stories like this, I got to look like I've got my life together while doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out. Livebearded.com. Use code what?
Good laws.
Yeah. We should switch it to Yore Town. Anyways, this next part, this is where everything falls apart. Because this should have been the easy part. That's how it feels, right? They got the guy. They have some evidence. They have the narrative. They just need to present it. But courtrooms don't work on feels like, do they? They work on proof. And this is where the prosecution ran into a little bit of trouble, Meg. There was no direct evidence. There was no eyewitnesses. There was no clear forensic match. Undeniable link placing Hart at the exact moment. They didn't have it. Everything was circumstantial. Strong circumstantial, but still circumstantial. You know what I mean? The defense, they leaned into one thing. They didn't need to prove Hart was innocent. They just needed to prove that the state, they just needed to prove that he was guilty. They poked holes. The footprints, they weren't exact. The physical evidence wasn't definitive. The letters weren't legally solid confessions. And slowly, that old strong case started to feel a little less certain. And then the decision comes in, Meg. Not guilty. Not because the jury believed he didn't do it, but because they weren't convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that he was the one. I think that's the huge difference, right? Years later, DNA testing enters the picture. This happens a lot, right?
Right.
People hoped. Finally, answers. But what they got instead? More frustration because the results were inconclusive. Not enough to confirm, not enough to clear, just more uncertainty. And I don't know, there was a little bit of the police didn't collect properly and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, they were only given the tools that they were given. It's not like they were intentionally not trying to solve this case. But none of them could have ever imagined that we have to, take enough evidence and DNA and, everything else, have it preserved for 30 or 40 years so we can finally get the, answers. But here we are, decades later, talking about it. And we got the same questions that hang over this case. Did they let the killer walk free, or did they avoid convicting the wrong man? Because both possibilities are real. Both are pretty uncomfortable. What do you think?
It's tricky.
It's tricky, 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 tricky.
I don't know. I think it's a coincidence that he was out, but I don't know that it was him.
There was one part that I started to look. I'm just looking up on my notes right here. I didn't know if he ended up back in jail. I mean, he escaped jail. So I have to imagine. But if he wasn't convicted for that, do you really be like, well, the killer's in jail? You know what I mean?
Right.
He was obviously acquitted 2 years after the not guilty. Yeah. So he had been at large since 1973, escaping from Mays County Jail. He'd been convicted of kidnapping and all the other stuff we talked about. He was actually raised a mile from Camp Scott Hart, and he was a member of the Cherokee Nation. He was arrested within a year at the home of a Cherokee medicine man. That's who he was represented. He was tried in 1979. The local sheriff pronounced himself 1,000% certain that Hart was guilty, but the local jury acquitted him. But because he was a jail escapee and stuff like that, he still had 305 years left of his 308-year sentence in Oklahoma State Penitentiary.
Wow.
Yeah. But 2 years after the murders, he died from a heart attack at the age of 35. An hour after lifting weights and jogging in the prison exercise yard.
Interesting.
Yep. So there was a civil suit. Two of the families sued the Magic Empire Council and its insurer for $5 million, which is roughly about $15 million in today's money, for negligence. The civil trial included discussion of the threatening note and the fact that the tent was 86 yards from the counselor's tent. By a 9-3 vote, jurors decided in favor of the Magic Empire Council. So the family's got nothing. There was obviously DNA testing that we did talk about that showed 3 of the 5 probes matched Hart's DNA. Statistically, DNA from 1 in 7,700 Native Americans would obtain these results. So in 2008, they conducted new DNA testing on stains found, and it was inconclusive because the samples were too deteriorated. 2017, there was a bunch of donations, $30,000 were raised by the sheriff in order to do new DNA tests in the latest advancement. So in 2022, they made public that the DNA evidence strongly suggests Hart's involvement. So unless something new comes up, something brought to light that he's not aware of, they are convinced of Hart's guilt and involvement in the case. Reed said that the results of the DNA test have been known since 2019, but they didn't go public in the findings until asked to do so by legal families. Interesting. Well, there we go.
Okay.
3 girls, they went to camp. They never came home. Suspect was caught, walked free, even though went back to jail, but never convicted in the truth. Well, it still sits somewhere in between what we know and what we can prove. Maybe that's what makes this story stick, right? Because it doesn't give you closure. It gives you doubt. And that might be even worse. That's all I got. You got anything else? All right. Well, we got a busy day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And yeah, we'll be back next week. Another case. Another time hanging out with Meg in the studio. Hopefully feeling better. And hopefully a very successful week of softball for the kids. So
busy week
from now till June.
Well, we got 5 games.
Let's do it.
Woo.
But one of them's near Buffalo Wild Wings and bottomless apps are back.
Woo-hoo.
All right, that's all we got. We'll be back. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.